What's up, everybody? So, today we're going to be talking about two anime series whose fan bases will seemingly never find any common ground: Darn and the Franxx and Neon Genesis Evangelion. I have read so many threads in both communities claiming that one is infinitely better than the other, or that FranXX is just a half baked ripoff of Evangelion. And I'm here as someone who dearly loves and represents both series to discuss these claims and hopefully dispel any animosity between the shows and their fan bases. Quick disclaimer before we get started: both of these shows are actually in my top 10, so don't expect me to openly slander one or the other. I'm simply going to discuss the differences and similarities between how the shows present themselves, as well as dispelling some common misconceptions that I see made within both communities. Also, there will be some spoilers in this video, so please be cautious if you have not seen both series. So, just to address this and get this out of the way, Evangelion was created by Studio Gainax, whose ex-employees then went on to create Studio Trigger and then Darn and the FranXX. Now, what's super interesting about this is that both of these series are anime original creations and they're not based on any form of source material. The manga for both series was written after the animes had already aired. I think this is super important and unique as they're both anime originals from very similar creators. And from what I've observed in both communities, this is a big reason in why these shows are basically religiously compared to each other. So with that being said, let's get down to the basic premise of each show. Neon Genesis Evangelion is set in the year 2015 in the futuristic armored city of Tokyo 3, where phenomenons called angels threaten the existence of humanity. NERV, a defense agency under the United Nations, is in charge of the Evangelions, or Evas, which are giant mechas that are capable of defeating the angels. The story follows 14-year-old Shinji Ikari as he sets out on a terrifying mission to pilot Eva Unit 1 and save humanity alongside other Eva pilots. Darling and the FranXX is set in the distant future, where humans have been driven to hiding in moving armored cities called plantations by beasts known as klaxosaurs. Squadrons of children are raised in each plantation to eventually become parasites and fight the klaxosaurs in mechs called FranXX, which can only be operated in boy-girl pairs. The story follows Hiro, or Code 016, a struggling parasite who lacks an effective partner to pilot the FranXX alongside, as him and his squadron of parasites fight the ever-growing klaxosaur threat. Sounds pretty similar on the surface level, right? Mechs, teenagers, world-ending scenario. Well, when you get into both shows, you realize how different they actually are. These two shows have entirely different goals and directions, and I think nearly anyone who has seen both of these shows will agree to that completely, unless they're just wishing to gain some internet points on a Reddit thread. Evangelion at its core is a super dark and deep psychological thriller with story, lore, and scenes that will literally make you wonder what the hell you're watching. Evangelion focuses heavily on psychological themes, suffering, trauma, and how they affect your actions and the people around you. Evangelion has little to no romance, melodrama, or comedy, but does sprinkle in small amounts of slice of life in some episodes. Neon Genesis Evangelion is regarded as being a very mature and composed series with little tropey segments. Darn and the FranXX is a modern sci-fi romance with a light amount of fan service that is packed full of action mecha scenes. Characters go through heartbreak and teen melodrama with a large focus on coming-of-age experiences and learning more about the world around them. FranXX does not try or pretend to be anything deeper or different than this. It is simply a beautiful love story with a focus on character drama and intense action sequences that help drive the story. Darn and the FranXX is also a super tropey and more stereotypical anime series when compared to Evangelion. The themes that both shows present are so drastically different that it makes no sense to try and find similarities between them, and when you do, you overlook the actual goal of each show, instead focusing on the obvious surface level similarities. At the end of the day, Evangelion inspired many mecha series, and it makes sense that a show made by similar creators could borrow from that same basic premise. But yet, in today's anime community, we still see people rapidly comparing the surface values of both of these series without actually focusing on what they're about and what goal they're trying to put forward. I mean, we can all agree that, yes, both shows are in an apocalyptic sci-fi setting and revolve around teenagers piloting mecha to save humanity. Yes, both shows have mecha that are actually living creatures. Yes, both shows revolve around the idea of establishing a deeper connection to be able to pilot the mechas. However, it would be absolutely ridiculous to say that piloting a FranXX is anything like piloting an Ava, or that Klaxosaurs share any relation at all to angels, or that Squad 13 and what they experience throughout Dawn and the FranXX is anything like that of the Ava pilots in Evangelion. They have two completely different dynamics with two completely different goals in mind. I mean, you pilot the FranXX through a fairly simple romantic and sexual connection, while Avas are piloted based on a much, much more complicated and drastically different method that actually involves the soul of the pilot's mother. Now, I refuse to get into Evangelion lore right now because we could be here for days. You know, all in all, the psychological trauma, story, and ridiculously disturbing themes in Evangelion just simply cannot be compared to the simple, modern sci-fi love story that is Darn and the FranXX. I mean, come on, guys, there isn't even a beach scene in Evangelion, but there's one in Dawn and the FranXX, and honestly, that should say enough about the differences between these shows. So, as I'm recording this, I'm just now realizing that technically there is a beach scene in Evangelion, but, it's not exactly in the context that I was meaning to portray. Nah, but seriously, please quit claiming that these shows are so similar because they simply aren't. Enjoy both shows in the medium that they are and enjoy them for different reasons. They're both great series in their own ways and I would recommend them wholeheartedly. But, that's just my opinion on the matter, and I'm sure I'm going to get flamed in the comments section, but let me know what you guys think about Evangelion and Dawn and the FranXX. Well, that's all I got, guys. My social media will be in the description if you want to keep in touch. Please remember to like and subscribe. Make sure to join the Baka Boys Discord server, which will also be in the description, and have a great rest of your night.